My name is Rosa Martinez. I'm 71 years old. And 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my son got married in an $80,000 wedding that I unknowingly paid for, while being deliberately excluded from the ceremony. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story from. I want to know how far it's traveled. Let me tell you exactly how I found out. I was sitting in my small kitchen, the same kitchen where I used to make Miguel's favorite pancakes every Sunday morning for 25 years, when my neighbor Mrs. Chin knocked on my door. She had this strange look on her face. You know that look when someone has to tell you something that's going to break your heart? Rosa, she said, holding her phone with trembling hands. I saw something on Facebook that I think you should know about. The photo showed my son Miguel in a black tuxedo, standing next to his girlfriend Victoria in a designer wedding dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension. They were in front of the most beautiful church in the wealthy part of town, surrounded by at least 200 guests. Everyone was smiling, celebrating, toasting with champagne glasses. Everyone except me, because I wasn't there, because I wasn't invited, because apparently the woman who raised him alone for 25 years, who worked 3 jobs to put him through college, who sold her wedding ring to help him start his business, wasn't worthy of witnessing his most important day. But here's what made my blood freeze in my veins. In the background of that photo, I could see the flower arrangements. White orchids and red roses in gold vases. I knew those flowers. I knew them because 3 weeks earlier, Miguel had come to me with tears in his eyes, begging for help with what he called a business emergency. "Mom, I need $15,000 or I'll lose everything," he had said, sitting in the same chair where he used to do his homework. "It's for inventory for supplies. If I don't pay by Friday, the company will go bankrupt." I gave him everything I had in my savings account. Every penny I had been saving for my own future, for maybe a small apartment in a retirement community someday. I gave it to him without hesitation, because that's what mothers do. But those flowers in the wedding photo, they were arranged by Rosa's Elegant Events, the same company that had charged my credit card $4,800 just 2 days after I gave Miguel that money. I knew this because I had just opened my credit card statement that morning, confused by the charge I didn't remember making. My hand started shaking as I scrolled through more photos. The reception hall, Golden Manor, the most expensive venue in the city. The catering Prime Steakhouse, where a single plate costs $150. The wedding cake, 3 tiers from Swiss Delights Bakery. The live band, the photographer, the limousines. And then I saw the receipt sitting on my kitchen counter. The receipt I had been trying to understand all morning. Miguel had used my credit card information, the same card I had given him access to for business emergencies, to charge $47,000 for event planning services. My son had used my own money to pay for his wedding, a wedding where I wasn't welcome. I sat there in my small kitchen, surrounded by photos of Miguel from kindergarten through college graduation, looking at pictures of the most important day of his life, a day he had stolen from me twice. First by excluding me, then by making me pay for my own exclusion. The worst part? I could see Victoria's family in every photo. Her parents, her siblings, her grandparents, all dressed in expensive clothes, all smiling proudly. They were all there to witness this moment. But the woman who had given everything to make this man who he was? She was at home, completely unaware that this day was even happening. 25 years of sacrifices. 25 years of putting his needs before mine. 25 years of believing that family meant something. And this was how he repaid me. But as I sat there, something shifted inside me. The tears stopped flowing, and something else took their place. Something cold and calculating and absolutely determined. Because Miguel had made one crucial mistake. He had underestimated his mother. And Victoria had no idea who she was dealing with. They thought they were so smart, planning their perfect wedding while keeping me in the dark. They thought I was just a naive old woman who would continue to give and give without ever asking questions. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Let me tell you about the son I raised, so you understand just how deep this betrayal cuts. Miguel was born when I was 21 years old. His father left us when Miguel was only 6 months old, just disappeared one day while I was at work, taking nothing but his clothes and leaving behind only a note saying he wasn't ready for this responsibility. I found that note taped to Miguel's crib. From that moment, it was just me and my baby boy against the world. I worked as a seamstress during the day, cleaned offices at night, and did laundry for neighbors on weekends. I remember countless nights when I would fall asleep at my sewing machine, needle still in hand, because there were only so many hours in the day and bills didn't stop coming. But Miguel was my everything. When he was learning to walk, I would get on my hands and knees after my 12-hour workday and be his personal jungle gym. When he started school, I made sure he always had the nicest clothes. Not expensive ones, because I couldn't afford expensive, but perfectly tailored ones, because I could make anything look like it came from a fancy store. I never missed a parent-teacher conference, never missed a school play, never missed a basketball game. Even when I had to choose between buying groceries and buying gas to get to his events, I always found a way to be there. When Miguel wanted to go to college, I sold everything I owned. My grandmother's jewelry, my car. I took the bus for 2 years. Even my wedding dress that I kept in a cedar chest. I liquidated my entire life to make sure he could get his business degree. And he was such a good son back then. He would call me every week from college, telling me about his classes, his friends, his dreams of starting his own company. He would come home for holidays and help me fix things around the house. He would say, "Mom, when I graduate and start making money, I'm going to buy you the biggest house you've ever seen. You'll never have to work again." After graduation, Miguel did start his business, an import company specializing in home goods. And he was successful. Within 5 years, he had his own office, 3 employees, and was living in a beautiful apartment downtown. He was making more money in a month than I made in a year. But success changed him. The weekly phone calls became monthly, then every few months, then only when he needed something. The visits home became rare occasions, usually accompanied by requests for financial help that he called short-term loans, but never repaid. And then he met Victoria. Victoria Whitman came from everything I had never been able to give Miguel. Her father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships. Her mother was on the board of 3 different charities. And Victoria herself had never worked a day in her life. She had a trust fund that paid her more monthly than I had earned in some entire years. The first time Miguel brought her to my small house, I could see her looking around with barely concealed disgust. She commented on my vintage furniture, which wasn't vintage, just old, and asked if I considered updating my decor. She brought her own water bottle because she didn't trust my tap water. But I tried so hard to like her because Miguel seemed happy. I cooked her favorite foods. I asked about her interests. I even started saving money to buy her nice gift for holidays. I wanted her to see that even though I didn't have much, I had love to give. Over the past 3 years, as their relationship became more serious, Miguel's requests for money became more frequent and larger. Business expansion, he would say, new inventory orders, equipment upgrades, always urgent, always presented as temporary assistance that would be paid back with interest. I gave him $8,000 for new computers for the office, another $12,000 for warehouse deposit, then $5,000 for truck repairs. And finally, 3 weeks ago, that devastating $15,000 for the so-called business emergency. Each time he would hug me and say, "Mom, I don't know what I would do without you. You're the most important person in my world." Each time I believed him. I should have noticed the signs. I should have questioned why a successful businessman needed so much help from his retired mother. I should have wondered why Victoria's wealthy family never seemed to contribute to these business emergencies. But I was blinded by love. I was blinded by the dream that someday Miguel would succeed enough to take care of me the way I had taken care of him. I was blinded by the hope that Victoria would eventually see me as family. Instead, they saw me as an ATM with unlimited emotional credit. And now, looking at those wedding photos, I realized that every dollar I had given Miguel in the past year hadn't gone to business expenses. It had gone to planning a wedding that I was never intended to see. A wedding where Victoria's family took the place of honor that should have belonged to the woman who made it all possible. They had been planning this for months. Months of looking me in the eye and lying. Months of taking my money while secretly plotting to exclude me from the most important day of their lives. But as I sat in my kitchen that day, surrounded by the evidence of my own foolishness, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out exactly how much of my money they had spent on their perfect day, and then I was going to make sure they understood the true cost of their betrayal. The next morning, I did something I had never done in my entire life. I called in sick to my part-time job at the neighborhood library. I had never lied to get out of work before, but this was more important than alphabetizing books and helping people find romance novels. I spread out every financial document I owned across my kitchen table. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, canceled checks, everything going back 12 months. I was going to trace every penny. What I discovered made me physically sick. The wedding venue, Golden Manor, had charged my credit card $28,000 in March. I remembered that day clearly now. Miguel had come over, panicked about quarterly tax payments and needing to use my card temporarily because his business account was frozen during an audit. He had taken my card into the bathroom to make what he said was a phone call to his accountant. I thought he was being private about business matters. Instead, he was booking the most expensive wedding venue in the city. The catering Prime Steakhouse had charged me $19,400 in April. Miguel had claimed this was for client entertainment expenses that would be reimbursed by his biggest customer. When I questioned the amount, he showed me a fake email from someone named Robert Chin from Pacific Import Solutions confirming the reimbursement. I later realized that Robert Chin was actually our neighbor's son who worked at a pizza place. The Flowers, Rose's Elegant Events, the irony of that name still burns, for $1,800 in May. This was supposedly for office decor to impress potential investors. The photography, $3,200 to Martinez Studios in April. Miguel said this was for product photography for his new catalog. When I saw the wedding photos, I recognized the photographer's distinctive style from the business cards Miguel had left on my counter. The wedding dress, $6,800 to Bella Bridal Boutique in March. Miguel told me this was for professional wardrobe upgrades that were tax-deductible business expenses. The rings, $8,200 to Diamond Gallery in February. Miguel said he was buying jewelry as investment pieces during an economic downturn. The limousines, $1,800 to Elite Transportation in May, supposedly for picking up important clients from the airport. Even the honeymoon, $11,400 to Paradise Travel Agency, charged my card just last week. Miguel had hugged me when he left my house that day, saying the charge was for a business retreat in Hawaii that would result in major contracts. The total was staggering, $83,600, more than I had earned in the last 3 years combined, more than I would see in pension payments for the next 7 years. But I wasn't finished. I decided to visit some of these businesses myself. At Rose's Elegant Events, I introduced myself as Rosa Martinez and asked to see the wedding portfolio for Miguel Martinez. The young woman at the desk immediately brightened. "Oh, Mrs. Martinez, we've been hoping to meet you. Your daughter-in-law Victoria mentioned that you were the one with the excellent taste who chose all the orchid arrangements." The wedding was absolutely beautiful. My daughter-in-law. Victoria had been telling the vendors that I was involved in planning this wedding. She had been taking credit for my payments while simultaneously erasing me from the actual event. At Golden Manor, the story was the same. "Mrs. Martinez, Victoria said you were traveling, but that you would be so proud to see how beautiful everything turned out. She said the reception hall was exactly what you had envisioned for your son's wedding." At Prime Steakhouse, the manager actually hugged me. The mother of the groom, Victoria, showed us your photo and told us how much it meant to you to provide this dinner for your son's wedding guests. She said you had been dreaming of this day since Miguel was a little boy. Each conversation was a knife twist. They had been using my name, my money, and my maternal love as props in their deception. To the outside world, I was a generous mother of the groom who had spared no expense for her son's happiness. In reality, I was a fool who had been robbed and excluded from her own generosity. But the most devastating discovery came when I visited Diamond Gallery. The salesperson recognized my name immediately. Mrs. Martinez, how wonderful to meet you in person. Miguel spoke about you with such love when he was choosing Victoria's engagement ring. He said you had always dreamed of seeing your son marry a wonderful woman, and that you wanted Victoria to have the most beautiful ring possible. He was so emotional talking about how much your approval meant to him. The engagement ring. The one I had never seen until the wedding photos. The one that had cost $8,200 of my money. Miguel had bought Victoria's engagement ring with funds stolen from me, while telling the jeweler a story about my dreams and approval. I asked to see the receipt. The date was February 14th, Valentine's Day. While I had been at home that evening, heating up a frozen dinner and watching old movies alone, Miguel had been proposing to Victoria with a ring purchased with my money, telling her God knows what story about how they could afford such luxury. And you, what would you do in this person's place? I would love to hear your opinion. So please share it with me in the comments. By the end of that week, I had a complete picture. My son and his new wife had orchestrated an elaborate, year-long deception. They had stolen nearly $84,000 from me to fund their dream wedding while ensuring I would never witness the fruits of my sacrifice. But they had made one crucial error. In their greed and arrogance, they had left a paper trail. Every transaction was documented. Every lie was provable. Every theft was traceable. And I had saved every single piece of evidence. It was time for Miguel and Victoria to learn that the woman they had dismissed as a naive old fool was actually a very intelligent woman who had simply been blinded by love. That blindness was over. What came next would be about justice. I knew I needed professional help. So I contacted someone I never thought I would need, a private investigator named Detective Sarah Morrison, who had recently retired from the police force and was recommended by my neighbor's daughter who worked at a law firm. Detective Morrison was a small, sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who listened to my story without judgment and immediately understood the scope of the deception. Mrs. Martinez, she said, this isn't just about wedding expenses. If they've been systematically using your financial information under false pretenses, we need to see exactly how deep this goes. What she discovered over the next 10 days shattered what was left of my heart. Miguel's business was thriving. His company, Martinez Import Solutions, had made $340,000 in profit last year alone. His personal checking account had a balance of $67,000, and Victoria had a trust fund worth over $200,000 that she accessed monthly. They weren't broke. They had never been broke. Every financial emergency Miguel had brought to me had been fabricated, but it got worse. Detective Morrison found social media posts dating back 2 years where Victoria had been joking with her friends about Miguel's pathetic, clingy mother who throws money at us every time Miguel tells some sob story. In one Facebook comment, she had written, "It's honestly embarrassing how easy it is." Miguel just has to put on his sad face and mention business troubles, and she opens her wallet. We're basically getting a free wedding courtesy of his mother's stupidity. Her friends had laughed. They had laughed at me. There were text messages between Miguel and Victoria that Detective Morrison obtained through a contact in telecommunications. Messages like, "Victoria, did you get the money from your mom for the flowers?" Miguel, "Yeah, told her it was for office decoration. She bought it completely." Victoria, "Perfect. My parents would die if they knew we were making some poor old woman pay for our wedding, but honestly, if she's stupid enough to keep giving us money without asking questions, that's not our problem." Miguel, "Sometimes I feel bad about lying to her." Victoria, "Don't. She's getting exactly what she paid for. The knowledge that her precious son is happy. That's all she really wants anyway. She'd probably pay for our honeymoon too, if we asked nicely." And the most devastating message of all, sent just 3 days before the wedding. Miguel, what if she finds out? Victoria, how would she find out? It's not like we invited her. And even if she did find out, what's she going to do? She's a 71-year-old seamstress with no money and no power. We'll deny everything and say she's confused. Who's going to believe her over us? That message broke something inside me that I didn't even know could be broken. But Detective Morrison had saved the worst for last. She handed me a manila folder with copies of legal documents inside. Mrs. Martinez, Miguel and Victoria didn't just exclude you from their wedding. 3 months ago, they went to a lawyer and had Victoria named as Miguel's power of attorney in case of emergency. They also created a will that leaves everything to Victoria, with a clause specifically stating that you are to receive no inheritance of any kind due to the financial support already provided during Miguel's lifetime. They had legally erased me from my son's life, while simultaneously planning to steal from me until the day I died. The folder also contained copies of credit applications where Miguel had listed me as a business partner and used my financial information to secure loans that I knew nothing about. Loans that were in both our names. Meaning if he defaulted, the creditors would come after my house, my pension, everything I had left. I was sitting in Detective Morrison's office, holding evidence that my son, the baby I had rocked to sleep every night for years, the child I had made countless sacrifices for, the man I would have died to protect, had been systematically destroying my life while planning to abandon me completely. "There's one more thing," Detective Morrison said gently. "Victoria's family knows about the money." She showed me bank records indicating that Victoria's father had actually loaned Miguel $30,000 6 months ago, money that was never repaid because Miguel had been using my funds instead. Victoria's family wasn't contributing to the wedding expenses because they knew Miguel had access to what Victoria called his mother's account. They all knew. Victoria's wealthy, sophisticated family knew that a 71-year-old retired seamstress was being financially abused by her own son to pay for their daughter's extravagant wedding, and they had decided that was perfectly acceptable. I sat in that detective's office and cried harder than I had cried since the day Miguel's father left us. But these weren't tears of sadness anymore. These were tears of rage, of humiliation, and of determination. When I finally stopped crying, I looked up at Detective Morrison and said, "I want them to pay for this. All of it. I want them to understand exactly what they've done." Detective Morrison smiled. The first time I had seen her smile since we met. "Mrs. Martinez, I think we can arrange that. But I need to know, are you sure you're ready for what comes next? Because once we start this process, there's no going back." I thought about Miguel as a little boy, running into my arms after school. I thought about all the nights I had worked extra hours to buy him the things he wanted. I thought about the pride I had felt watching him graduate from college. I thought about all the dreams I had sacrificed so that he could have his dreams. Then I thought about those text messages, about being called stupid and pathetic, about being erased from the most important day of his life after paying for every detail of it. "Detective Morrison," I said, "I've spent 25 years being the mother Miguel needed. Now it's time to be the mother he deserves." She nodded and opened her laptop. "Then let's give them a wedding gift they'll never forget." Over the next 2 weeks, Detective Morrison and I crafted what she called the most elegantly devastating plan of financial justice she had ever seen. Every detail was legal, ethical, and absolutely ruthless. First, we gathered every piece of evidence into a comprehensive file. Bank records, receipts, credit card statements, text messages, social media posts, witness statements from vendors, and photo evidence from the wedding. We had documentation of 47 separate instances of financial fraud spanning 18 months, totaling $127,000 when we included the secret loans Miguel had taken in my name. But evidence was only the beginning. The real beauty of our plan lay in using Miguel and Victoria's own arrogance against them. Detective Morrison had discovered something interesting about Victoria's family business. Whitman Luxury Automobiles had been struggling with some negative publicity after a scandal involving overcharging elderly customers for unnecessary services. They had recently launched a major PR campaign about ethical business practices and protecting senior citizens from financial exploitation. The irony was perfect. We also learned that Miguel's import business depended heavily on his reputation in the local business community. He was applying for membership in the Chamber of Commerce and had been networking aggressively to land a major contract with the city government for office supplies. His entire career depended on people seeing him as trustworthy and family-oriented. Our plan had 3 phases. Phase 1, legal documentation. I hired an attorney specializing in elder financial abuse, Yes, that's what this was called legally, and yes, it carried serious penalties. My lawyer, Margaret Chun, Mrs. Chen's daughter-in-law, as it turned out, filed official complaints with the district attorney's office, the state attorney general, and the Better Business Bureau. We also demanded immediate repayment of all funds, with 18% annual interest compounded monthly, the maximum allowed by state law. The total amount owed, including interest and legal fees, came to $167,000. But here's the genius part. We didn't just send the demand letters to Miguel and Victoria. We sent copies to Miguel's business partners, Victoria's parents, the members of the Chamber of Commerce, and every vendor who had participated in their wedding. Phase 2, social exposure. Detective Morrison helped me create a comprehensive social media presence. We opened accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Justice for Grandma Rosa, and began sharing my story with documentation. But we didn't just post angry rants. We posted the actual receipts, the actual text messages, the actual wedding photos alongside the financial records showing who had really paid for everything. We let the evidence speak for itself. The posts went viral almost immediately. Thousands of people shared their own stories of family financial betrayal. Local news stations picked up the story. The headline on Channel 7 was, "Local son uses mother's life savings for secret wedding she wasn't invited to." Phase 3, strategic patience. Here's where we got creative. Instead of demanding immediate payment or threatening to sue right away, we gave Miguel and Victoria exactly what they thought they wanted: the chance to try to lie their way out of it. We knew they would try to deny everything, claim confusion, maybe even suggest I was suffering from dementia. We were counting on it, because Detective Morrison had arranged for everything to be recorded. When Miguel finally called me, 3 days after the story broke on social media, I was ready. Detective Morrison was at my house with recording equipment, and my lawyer was on speakerphone. "Mom," Miguel said, and I could hear panic in his voice, "there's been some kind of misunderstanding. People are saying crazy things about Victoria and me on the internet." "What kind of misunderstanding, Miguel?" I asked calmly. "These accusations about us using your money for our wedding. That's insane. You know I would never do something like that to you. So you're saying you didn't use my credit card to pay for your wedding venue?" "Of course not." "Mom, I think someone might have stolen your identity. We need to call the police." "The police have already been called, Miguel. They have copies of every transaction. They have your fingerprints on my credit card statements. They have text messages between you and Victoria joking about my stupidity." Silence. "Miguel, are you still there?" "Mom, this is all a misunderstanding. Victoria and I love you. You know we would have invited you to the wedding, but we thought it would be too much stress for someone your age." And there it was. Even when caught red-handed, he was still lying, still trying to manipulate me, still suggesting that exclusion was somehow for my own good. "Miguel," I said, "I have a question for you. Do you remember when you were 8 years old and you wanted that bicycle for Christmas? The red one with the racing stripes." "Mom, I don't understand what." "I worked overtime for 3 months to save $200 for that bike. I remember wrapping it on Christmas Eve and being so excited to see your face on Christmas morning. Do you remember what you said when you saw it?" "Mom, please." "You said, 'This is the best present ever, Mom. When I grow up, I'm going to buy you 100 bikes to pay you back.' Do you remember saying that?" He was crying now. I could hear it in his voice. "Mom, please, we can fix this." "No, Miguel, you can't fix this, but you can pay for it. All of it, with interest." I hung up. 2 hours later, Victoria called. Detective Morrison and I were ready for her too. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Victoria. I think we need to talk." "Hello, Victoria. Congratulations on your marriage. I saw the photos online. It looked beautiful. You must be so proud of how it turned out." "Mrs. Martinez, I need you to understand that we never meant to hurt you." "Oh, I understand perfectly, Victoria. I understand that you spent $83,600 of my money on your wedding while calling me stupid and pathetic behind my back. I understand that you convinced my son to legally erase me from his life while planning to steal from me until I died. I understand exactly what you meant to do. You don't understand. Miguel loves you. We both do. The wedding was it was complicated family politics. My parents insisted on a small ceremony. Victoria, I saw the photos. There were over 200 people at your wedding. Your entire extended family was there, including cousins and college friends. The only person missing was the woman who paid for the whole thing. Mrs. Martinez, please, we can work this out. We'll pay you back. Yes, Victoria, you will. You'll pay back every penny, with 18% annual interest within 30 days, or I will pursue every legal remedy available to me. And considering the evidence I have, that includes criminal charges for elder financial abuse. Criminal charges? Mrs. Martinez, you can't be serious. Victoria, when I was your age, I thought family was everything. I thought love meant sacrifice without question. I thought being a good mother meant giving everything and asking for nothing. You've taught me that I was wrong about all of those things. Thank you for the education. I hung up on her too. The beautiful thing about our plan was that every conversation, every attempt at manipulation, every lie they told just provided more evidence for our case. They were literally helping us build the foundation for their own destruction. And the best part was still to come. The next morning, something beautiful happened. Miguel and Victoria made the mistake I had been hoping for. They decided to fight back publicly. Victoria posted a long Facebook message claiming that I was a bitter old woman with dementia who was making up stories for attention. She said they had tried to include me in their wedding, but I had been too confused and unstable to attend. She even suggested that I had given the money as gifts and was now having delusions about being stolen from. Miguel shared her post and added his own comment. It breaks my heart to see my mother like this. We've been trying to get her professional help, but she refuses treatment. Please pray for our family during this difficult time. They had just handed me everything I needed. Within 2 hours, I posted their wedding photos side by side with my bank statements, showing the exact same amounts charged on my credit card. I posted screenshots of their text messages mocking me. I posted copies of the legal documents where they had tried to erase me from Miguel's while planning to continue stealing from me. But most devastatingly, I posted the vendor statements. Every single business that had provided services for their wedding had told me how Victoria had bragged about her generous mother-in-law, who was so excited to pay for everything. I had recorded those conversations with permission. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. The original Facebook post got 50,000 shares in 24 hours. The hashtag Justice for Grandma Rosa was trending locally. People were calling Miguel's business and Victoria's father's car dealership demanding boycotts. But the real victory came when Channel 7 News called and asked if I would do a live interview. I said yes. The interview aired on the evening news 3 days later. I sat in the same kitchen where I had first discovered the betrayal, wearing my best dress and the pearl earrings Miguel had given me for Mother's Day 5 years ago. Earrings I now knew had been purchased with my own money from one of his emergency requests. The reporter, Janet Williams, was gentle but thorough. She asked me to walk to the timeline of deception, and I showed every piece of evidence on camera. The wedding photos, the bank statements, the text messages, the vendor receipts. When she asked how I felt about my son's claims that I was suffering from dementia, I looked directly into the camera. I am 71 years old. I said clearly, I have been managing my own finances for over 50 years. I have never missed a payment on any bill, never bounced a check, never made a financial mistake that cost me more than a few dollars. I worked 3 jobs, put my son through college, and I ran a successful seamstress business for 30 years. Does that sound like someone who is confused about money? Then I held up a folder thick with documents. I have here 47 separate instances of unauthorized use of my credit cards and bank accounts, totaling $127,000. I have text messages where my son and his wife mock me and call me stupid for trusting them. I have social media posts where Victoria brags to her friends about how easy it is to steal from me. I have legal documents showing they tried to erase me from my sons while planning to continue taking my money. If this is dementia, then I'm the most organized, well-documented dementia patient in medical history. The reporter asked what I wanted to happen next. I want them to understand that actions have consequences. I said, I want other families to see what financial elder abuse looks like, so they can protect themselves. And I want Miguel and Victoria to pay back every penny they stole from me with interest, so I can rebuild a retirement they destroyed. The interview ended with me sitting in my kitchen, surrounded by photos of Miguel from childhood through adulthood. I raised a son I was proud of, I said. Somewhere along the way, that son got lost. But I'm still proud of the mother I was, and I'm proud of the woman I'm becoming. It's never too late to stand up for yourself. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The news station's Facebook page was flooded with supportive comments. Other news stations picked up the story. The local newspaper ran a front-page article titled, "The Wedding Bill That Broke a Mother's Heart." Most importantly, the legal pressure became unbearable. Miguel's business started losing customers immediately. The Chamber of Commerce rejected his membership application. 3 of his major suppliers canceled their contracts, citing concerns about business ethics and family values. Victoria's father's car dealership was facing serious backlash. The company that had built its recent PR campaign on protecting seniors from financial exploitation was now publicly associated with enabling the financial abuse of a 71-year-old grandmother. 2 weeks after the news interview aired, my lawyer received a call from Miguel and Victoria's attorney. They wanted to settle. The settlement they offered was insulting, $50,000 with no admission of wrongdoing and a requirement that I sign a non-disclosure agreement and remove all social media posts about the situation. I declined. 3 days later, they offered the full $127,000 plus legal fees, still with the NDA requirement. I declined again. Finally, exactly 1 month after that devastating phone conversation, I received their final offer, $167,000, the full amount plus 18% interest, all legal fees, a written apology to be published in a local newspaper, and no NDA requirement. I accepted, but I wasn't finished with them yet. I had one more gift to give. The check arrived on a Tuesday morning via certified mail, along with a handwritten letter from Miguel that I almost threw away without reading. But something made me open it. Dear Mom. It began, and I could see tear stains on the paper. I know there are no words that can undo what I've done to you. I know that saying I'm sorry feels meaningless after everything that's happened. But I need you to know that I hate myself for what I became. The letter was 4 pages long. He wrote about how Victoria had gradually convinced him that I was holding him back with my old-fashioned values and small-town mentality. He wrote about how our family had made him feel ashamed of his background, of our modest house, of the sacrifices I had made that reminded him we had once been poor. Victoria told me that successful people don't let family obligations limit their potential, he wrote. She said that truly loving you meant becoming independent from you, even if it hurt your feelings temporarily. She convinced me that taking money from you was actually helping you feel needed and important. But the most devastating part of the letter was what came next. Mom, the truth is that I was ashamed of you, ashamed of where I came from, ashamed that my friends and business associates might see you and know that I wasn't born into the world I was trying to fit into. Victoria's family represented everything I thought I wanted: money, status, acceptance in high society. I thought if I could just distance myself from my past, from you, I could become the person I thought I needed to be. He wrote about the moment during the wedding when Victoria's grandmother had asked where his family was, and Victoria had said, Miguel's mother couldn't make it. She's quite elderly and doesn't travel well. He said that's when he realized what he had done, but by then it was too late to stop the momentum of their deception. I kept telling myself that I would make it up to you later, he wrote, that once we were settled and established, I would bring you into our lives properly. I told myself that the money was temporary, that I would pay you back with interest, and you would be proud of what we had built together. I was lying to myself as much as I was lying to you. The letter ended with, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that losing you has taught me that all the money and status in the world means nothing if you have to destroy your soul to get it. You raised me to be a better man than I became. I'm sorry it took losing you to remember who you taught me to be. I sat in my kitchen reading that letter 3 times, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Not forgiveness, but sadness. Sadness for the little boy who used to help me fold laundry and tell me about his dreams. Sadness for the young man who had worked so hard in college and called me every week. Sadness for the successful businessman who had thought he needed to erase his past to secure his future. But sadness wasn't enough to undo the damage. 2 days later, Victoria showed up at my door. I almost didn't open it, but something about her posture, defeated, smaller somehow, made me curious about what she had to say. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her designer clothes had been replaced with jeans and a simple sweater, and she had clearly been crying. "Mrs. Martinez," she said, "may I please come in? I know I don't deserve it, but I need to talk to you." I led her into my kitchen, the same kitchen where she had once looked around with disgust. This time, she sat down quietly and folded her hands in her lap like a chastened child. "My marriage is over," she said simply. "My parents have disowned me. My trust fund has been frozen pending a family investigation into my financial ethics. My friends won't return my calls because they're embarrassed to be associated with what I did to you. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Mrs. Martinez, I need you to understand something. I grew up in a family where money was never discussed because there was always enough of it. I never learned the value of a dollar because I never had to. When Miguel told me about your financial help, I didn't think about what those numbers meant to you. I thought about what they meant to us: convenience, luxury, the perfect wedding." She paused and looked around my small kitchen. "But sitting here now, in this house where you raised Miguel by yourself, seeing these pictures of him growing up, understanding what you sacrificed, I realized that every dollar you gave us represented hours of your life, days of work, dreams you gave up, and we treated it like it was nothing." Victoria started crying then, really crying. Not the elegant tears of someone who knows they look beautiful when they're sad. "I convinced myself that you were just a lonely old woman who wanted to feel important by helping us. I told myself that taking your money was actually kindness because it gave you purpose. I was so wrong about everything." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small jewelry box. "This is my engagement ring, the one Miguel bought with your money. I want you to have it back." I looked at the box but didn't take it. "Victoria," I said, "what exactly do you want from me? I want you to know that I understand what I did was unforgivable. I want you to know that I'm not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just wanted to sit in this kitchen where you raised a man I fell in love with and understand who you really are instead of the person I convinced myself you were." She stood up to leave, but I stopped her. "Victoria, sit down. I have something to tell you." She sat back down, looking confused. "You're right that what you did was unforgivable. You're right that you don't deserve my forgiveness. But you're wrong about one thing. I'm not giving you my forgiveness because you deserve it. I'm giving it to you because I deserve peace." Her eyes widened. "I spent 25 years of my life angry at Miguel's father for abandoning us. 25 years carrying that bitterness, that resentment, that sense of betrayal. It didn't hurt him. He was long gone. It only hurt me. I'm not going to spend whatever years I have left carrying anger at you and Miguel. That anger belongs to you now. You can carry it or let it go, but it's not mine anymore." I took the ring box from her hands. "I'm taking this ring not because I forgive you, but because it represents something important. It represents the fact that love based on lies and theft isn't love at all. Maybe someday, if you're very lucky, you'll find someone who loves you enough to tell you the truth about who you are instead of helping you lie about who you want to be." Victoria cried harder then, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Mrs. Martinez, what can I do? How can I make this right?" "You can't make it right, Victoria. Some things can't be fixed, only learned from. You can become the kind of person who would never do what you did to me. You can make sure that if you ever have children, you raise them to understand that family isn't something you use. It's something you treasure." She nodded and stood up again. "Mrs. Martinez, Miguel wants to see you. He's been calling and texting every day, begging for a chance to apologize in person. Will you see him? I thought about it for a long moment. No, I said, not yet. Maybe not ever. Miguel knows where I live. If he wants to apologize, he can start by proving that he's learned how to respect boundaries. Demanding to see me when I haven't said I want to see him is just another form of taking what he wants without considering what I need. Victoria nodded and walked toward the door, but she stopped and turned back. Mrs. Martinez, for what it's worth, Miguel talks about you every day, about the mother you were, about the sacrifices you made, about how much he misses you, the money we stole from you. It's destroyed our marriage because neither of us can look at anything we bought without remembering what it cost you. We can't live in the apartment because you paid the deposit. We can't wear our wedding rings because you bought them. We can't even look at our wedding photos because every detail reminds us of how we betrayed you. Good, I said. That's called consequences. You should get used to them. After Victoria left, I sat in my kitchen holding that engagement ring and thinking about the woman I had been when this whole nightmare started. The woman who had trusted blindly, who had given endlessly, who had believed that love meant never asking questions. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, smarter, and more complete. Someone who understood that true love requires respect, that real family is built on honesty, and that the greatest gift you can give someone is the expectation that they be worthy of your trust. I had survived the worst betrayal of my life, and I had emerged victorious, not because I had got my money back, but because I had gotten myself back. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same kitchen where the story began, but everything had changed. The check from Miguel and Victoria had been deposited, my credit cards were paid off, and I had more money in my savings account than I'd had in 10 years. But that wasn't the real transformation. The real transformation was in how I saw myself. I had taken the $167,000 settlement and done something I had never done in my entire life. I had spent money on myself without guilt. I renovated my kitchen with new appliances and beautiful granite countertops. I bought a reliable car to replace the 15-year-old Honda that had been breaking down every few months. I even took a cruise to Alaska, something I had dreamed about for years but never allowed myself to consider. But most importantly, I had used part of the money to start a small nonprofit organization called Grandparents Against Financial Abuse. Working with Detective Morrison and my lawyer Margaretchen, we had helped 17 other families identify and prosecute financial elder abuse. We had recovered over $400,000 in stolen funds and sent 3 people to jail. I had turned my pain into purpose. The story of Miguel and Victoria's betrayal had given me something I never expected, a voice. Local news stations call me regularly for commentary on elder abuse cases. I had been invited to speak at senior centers across the state. I had even been contacted by a publisher interested in turning my story into a book about financial empowerment for older adults. I was no longer just Rosa Martinez, the retired seamstress who had been taken advantage of by her son. I was Rosa Martinez, the advocate, the survivor, the woman who had fought back and won. But the most meaningful change came through the letters. After the news story aired, I started receiving letters from all over the country, hundreds of them, letters from adult children thanking me for showing them how much their parents had sacrificed, letters from grandparents who had recognized similar patterns in their own families and taken action to protect themselves, letters from people who said my story had inspired them to repair damaged relationships or set healthier boundaries with family members. One letter particularly moved me. It was from a young woman named Sarah in Oregon who wrote, Mrs. Martinez, after seeing your story, I realized I've been taking advantage of my mother's generosity for years. I thought she was just being a good mom by helping with my rent, my car payments, my credit card debt. I never considered that she was sacrificing her own security for mine. I called her yesterday, and we made a plan for me to pay her back everything she's given me over the past 5 years. But more importantly, I told her how grateful I am for everything she's done, and how sorry I am that it took your story to make me realize how precious a mother's love really is. Letters like that made everything worthwhile. My pain had prevented other families from experiencing the same betrayal. My story had reminded adult children to value their parents while they still could. As for Miguel and Victoria, their marriage had indeed ended 3 months after our confrontation. The stress of the public humiliation, the financial pressure, and the guilt of what they had done had destroyed whatever love had existed between them. Miguel had moved back in with Victoria's parents temporarily, but that arrangement had lasted only 2 weeks before they asked him to leave. I heard through Mrs. Chun that Miguel was now living in a small apartment across town, and had started seeing a therapist to deal with what he called the shame of who I became. Victoria had moved back to her childhood bedroom in her parents' house and was working as a sales associate at a department store, the first job she'd ever had. Miguel had tried to contact me several times through mutual friends, always asking for just 5 minutes to apologize in person. Each time, I sent back the same message. When you're ready to show respect for my boundaries, you'll stop asking for what you want and start giving me what I need, which is space and time to heal. I wasn't being cruel. I was being smart. I had learned that forgiveness is a process, not an event, and that I didn't owe anyone access to me while I was healing from their betrayal. But I also wasn't completely closed to the possibility of reconciliation someday. The mother in me still loved the little boy Miguel had once been. The question was whether the man he was becoming would ever be worthy of that love again. 2 weeks ago, I received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a cashier's check for $3,847.23 made out to grandparents against financial abuse, along with a note in Miguel's handwriting. Mom, I know you don't want to hear from me, and I'm respecting that by not asking for a response to this letter. I calculated every late fee, interest charge, and overdraft fee you incurred because of the money I stole from you over the years. This check covers those hidden costs that weren't included in our legal settlement. I'm donating it to your organization because I know that helping other families is more important to you than hearing another apology from me. I hope someday I'll be the kind of person who deserves a place in the good work you're doing. Until then, I'm working on becoming worthy of the son you raised me to be. I deposited the check and added Miguel's name to our donor list. It was a small step, but it was a step. If you like my story, you can support me by making a donation so I can write more stories. Thank you in advance. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. Looking back now, I realize that the worst day of my life, the day I discovered Miguel's betrayal, was also the beginning of the best chapter of my life. I had spent 71 years being the person everyone needed me to be, the devoted daughter, the sacrificial mother, the generous friend, the quiet neighbor. But I had never been Rosa. Just Rosa, the woman with her own dreams, her own needs, her own voice. The betrayal had stripped away everything I thought I was supposed to be and left me with who I actually was. A strong, intelligent, resourceful woman who survived every challenge life had thrown at her and emerged victorious every time. I was no longer waiting for someone else to validate my worth or appreciate my sacrifices. I was creating my own worth every day through the lives I was helping protect and the voices I was helping to find. I was no longer the woman who gave endlessly and asked for nothing. I was the woman who gave strategically and demanded respect in return. I was no longer the mother who loved blindly. I was the mother who loved wisely. And for the first time in my entire life, I was enough, not because of what I gave others, but because of who I was for myself. The kitchen where this story began is the same kitchen where I now host meetings for grandparents against financial abuse. The table where I once spread out evidence of my son's betrayal is now where other survivors spread out evidence of their own battles. The phone that once delivered devastating news now rings with calls from people seeking help and hope. I am 71 years old. I am a retired seamstress, a survivor of financial elder abuse, an advocate for family justice, and a woman who learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. My name is Rosa Martinez, and this is my story of how losing everything I thought I needed taught me everything I actually was. And if you're facing your own family betrayal, your own moment of devastating discovery, your own choice between staying a victim or becoming a victor, I want you to know this. You are stronger than you think, smarter than they assume, and more valuable than they will ever understand. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. The end. If you like my story, You can support me by making a donation so I can write more stories. Thank you in advance. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you.